Hello and welcome to our sustainability interview series, where we discuss circular economy, landfill, legislation, and practical tips you can apply to improve the sustainability of your business. In today's episode, we speak to Steve Travis, Procurement Director at Waste Managed. We discuss plastic pollution in our oceans, current and upcoming legislation, and what else can be done. We look at Steve's day-to-day role and how he embodies circular economy principles in everything that he does. And we look at waste brokers such as Waste Managed and their role in shaping a more sustainable future.
Yeah, so my name is Steve Travis, Procurement Director for Waste Managed and the Everything Managed Group. And I've been here for 5.5 years now and very much driving the circular economy agenda for the company. And that's driven very much by some personal experiences that I've had in the past. So I think I'm feeling in a very privileged position to be able to influence what's happening with waste. I think the trigger for me was scuba diving, which is something that I'm very keen and passionate on doing. And it's been very noticeable in the last 5-6 years, particularly, that the quality of the sea water and what's going into it has been declining very rapidly. And got to a point where there are certain locations now where there's more litter in the sea than fish, and it's really concerning. It just really hit home the damage that we're doing to the planet. As I say, I'm in a very privileged position to think, well, actually, I can do something about that in a small way, but maybe to influence a lot of businesses to do the right thing. We're producing too much packaging, and not just in the UK, but around the world. The traditional means of packaging products, certainly in places like Asia, where they used to use banana leaves and plants to wrap food in, they're all now going for super convenience, which means plastic bags. And so what we're seeing is a systemic change in people's behaviour. And unfortunately, banana leaves would actually compost down and just disappear into the soil. The plastic bags go into the ocean pretty much through rivers and wash through into the sea. So I think that's sort of one of the problems we have. We, in the UK here, produce an enormous amount of packaging, perhaps that is not necessary, and there are moves afoot already to reduce that quite dramatically. But I think with plastic, about 9% globally is recycled, only 9, so 91% is going somewhere, and a lot of that is going into the ocean, a lot of it's going to landfill, but it's just not being reused, and that's the big challenge we have. I think it's about use less and reuse more. And in simple terms, if we did that, that would make a huge impact in terms of what's being polluting the earth at the moment. So I think in the UK, we're doing better than the global average, which is good. There's some positives here. 56% of plastics in the UK are now being recycled. So that has been improving, but is now stalled, which is quite concerning. And there is therefore a raft of legislation the government are introducing that should see us actually accelerate again to recycle more. So there are some positives. Yeah, and actually we're going to get ahead of the curve because for us, Simpler 2027, which is the final part of that jigsaw, is going to affect 90% of our customer book. So we had a huge challenge with our 10%. The 90% looks really daunting right now. So I think that this time we have far more time to plan. In the last one we've just done, because of the change of government, they gave us, I think, a grand total of 10 weeks from saying, yes, it's definitely happening, to doing it. And it's like nobody was ready for it, and they couldn't be. Now we've got 2 years effectively still to actually get this right. I think the most important thing that we always talk to customers around is making sure that they're separating the waste wherever they can do. So separate waste streams definitely improves recycling rates, and we know that. So where customers may think they're just trying to sell me an extra bin, we're not. We're actually trying to get them to separate the waste properly so that it can be recycled better. And usually, actually, that does result in a cost saving as well. So it's actually a win for everybody. I think the example of how that works was very much evidenced by the legislation in Wales, which was done 12 months pre the English legislation. And Wales were really struggling with recycling rates, and they put in actually 5 bins rather than the 4 that are being introduced into England. And they're now the second best recycler in the world, only behind Austria. And they're very, very hot on the heels of them. So what that's done, it's forced people to separate the waste properly. It gets collected separately, and then because it's collected separately, it's much more easily recycled. So that's a blueprint for what we're trying to do now with all the customer base, and trying to educate the customers around why it's the right thing to do. Every single one of our suppliers is subject to a minimum of an annual audit and often a quarterly audit, which actually looks at what they're doing with the waste streams, where they're going to, and they have to, wherever possible, go for 100% landfill avoidance. Now, it's not always possible to go for landfill avoidance if you've got something that just cannot be recycled, but much of it can. And so what's now happening is, even if people are putting recyclable products into a general waste bin, a lot of our suppliers now are taking it back to a sorting centre, and they're actually trying to sort and actually get some of that recycling out. Now, again, you might think, well, it's not just because they like doing that, there's actually value in it. So waste used to be a problem for everybody in terms of how cheaply can you get rid of it, as in throw it in a hole in the ground for landfill. Now, because of all the recycling options, the waste has actually got value. So for the supplier to collect the waste and then try and extract the cans and the cardboard and the paper out of even the general waste bin, that's all money to them. So again, it's actually rewarding good behaviour. I think the one biggest single problem we have at the moment is people understanding what they should put in each bin. So people look at a product normally and it's got a Mobius loop on, which is this triangular, this arrow is pointing into a triangle, and everyone assumes, oh, that means it's a recycled product, I'll put it in the recycling bin. It doesn't. There are actually 7 different types of plastics, just going back to the plastics theme, some of which can be recycled and some of which can't. And there's a little number in the middle of that Mobius loop that, and depends on what the number is as to which bin it goes in. I mean, who knew? And so therefore, what's happening is there's a lot of what the industry are calling wish cycling going on. So people are trying to do the right thing, thinking, oh, I'm checking it. Yeah, it says it's got that little triangle on. I'll put it in the recycling bin. And what can happen then is it actually contaminates the load of waste, because the recycling plant will actually refuse the load. And so the whole of the rest of the load then has to go to be either incinerated or landfilled. So at the moment, that's stopping the recycling rates going forwards. So there's lots of different pieces of legislation coming in, including extended producer responsibility, which is going to make the waste packaging producers liable for the cost of disposing of the waste. The objective with that is to make them produce less in the first place, so that actually when we're going into the supermarket, we're not looking at trays with plastic all over them and unnecessary packaging. So I think that will help. But the most and biggest single thing that will help, and they are looking at how they do it at the moment, is to actually improve the labelling of products, so it becomes very clear when you've got a product like a shampoo bottle, for instance, which parts of that bottle can you recycle, which parts can't. And they're also then looking at a standardised way of processing the different types of waste. So at the moment, there is another problem in that some waste collectors will have the facility of processing certain types of plastic, others don't. And so the whole thing is very confused and confusing to the consumer and businesses as well. So by standardising labels and also reducing the amount of packaging in the first place, those 2 sets of legislation that are coming down the tracks will have a big positive impact. Yes, indeed. And I think we are in, as I said earlier, we're in a privileged position to be able to influence what the businesses that are our customers are doing with their waste. And that involves training for a start, which we do get involved with. It involves education. We become and are industry experts, sitting on committees looking at legislation, what needs to happen, how should it be implemented. So I think we have a duty to, and we do, share that knowledge with customers and genuinely try and help them to not only save money for their businesses, which is what they're obviously interested in doing, but also to do the right thing. So if we take, for instance, hospitality trade, of which we have an enormous number of customers, the one biggest thing that's making a big impact already with Simpler Recycling is adding food bins to their estate. So, historically, a lot of hospitality businesses haven't had food bins, so they're putting food into a general waste bin. When actually what they should be doing is making sure that it does get recycled and goes in to create energy, which a lot of it does, or compost. Naturally, because food is heavy and we take it out of the general waste bin, it saves them money. As an example, that's the sort of thing that we can add value to a customer with. So rather than thinking, oh, they're just trying to sell me an extra bin, we'll actually give you another bin. You'll actually be able to recycle more and you'll be spending less. And it's those sorts of things where I think we could add some real value. And I think our role, first of all, is to educate, train, encourage businesses to do the right thing. By doing that, we're collecting more product that will get recycled. And by doing that, we're also encouraging the companies who are doing the recycling to build more facilities because the demand is there to fill them. So we are actually, from cradle to grave almost, influencing that process all the way through. And I think the important thing as well is we have full traceability. So we can see from the waste being collected from one of our customers where it goes to next and where it actually ends up. And that's an important thing to mention because there's an awful lot of negative news around fly tipping and rubbish at the moment.
To discover more about waste managed and the importance of circular economy, download our free ESG guide.